Hi everybody, hope you're doing well. Before I begin this video and you'd like to use OCD Recovery's coaching services, please reach out to Phil at ocdrecovery.com and he'll get back to you as quick as he can. So yeah, today guys, I just wanted to speak about some anxiety compulsions and things that you might be doing in order to alleviate and offset your anxiety. And you know, it's understandable, anxiety is very uncomfortable. It feels very unpleasant and we don't necessarily want it to be there, and because of that we try and do things in order to get rid of it, so to speak. And we just need to be careful about how we do this, because when we try and get rid of anxiety with that intention of making it go away, we reinforce to the brain that these anxiety sensations are important. We actually reinforce that they're scary, and when we do that, you know, the fear cycle stays very much alive and we stay stuck in the cycle. So we need to work at disarming that anxiety cycle, and part of that is by reducing compulsions and being really vigilant of those. So with anxiety compulsions, there's lots of different things you might do. So when you feel anxious, you might say like a reassurance statement or a mantra, such as, you know, it's going to be okay, you can handle this, you're going to get through this, etc. And although well intentioned, it just, again, it reinforces the fact that this anxiety we're experiencing is important. And you know, it's sort of done in a way in order to try and offset that discomfort. So we have to try and not speak back to it in the moment. We just have to wear it. And you know, just adding on to that as well, what we can try and do is, because we feel anxious, we dispute in the moment. So you might be reciting your irrational beliefs about the anxiety. So anxiety is awful, I shouldn't experience the anxiety, etc. And you try and force that in the moment. You're trying to force that acceptance in the moment, and again, it's just going to keep the anxiety alive, because it's showing yourself that you don't want to have it. And of course, OCD and anxiety is going to be back with a vengeance when it knows that, right? So you need to be really careful about that. Again, just allow yourself to be anxious as best as you can without adding that secondary layer to it. It's very much a skill that can be practiced over time, but we just have to keep doing it again and again and again, and gradually just leaving it there, changing our perspective on the anxiety, and just pushing through it day by day. Other compulsions can be switching medication regularly. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with being on medication for anxiety. It can really take the edge off. But if you're switching medication every 2 to 3 weeks, right, that can be very, very compulsive. And of course, speak to your doctor regarding medication. But if you're doing it very quickly because you think, oh, it's not working, I need to find something now, I need to do it now, then that's just not going to work. You need to, when you try medication, in my view, you need to give it a bit of time, see how you go with it, 2 to 3 months, and then, if it's not having the desired impact, then you can potentially change after speaking with your healthcare provider. But yeah, it's that quick fix. We can't do quick fixes here. We have to try and get good at sitting with the anxiety and bringing it down over time. Another one is deep breathing. So what you might do is, the anxiety sensation is there and you almost like try and out breathe it, like something like that, and you try and out breathe the anxiety to try and help it to dissipate and help it go away. But again, if you're doing that, if anything's being done to try and get rid of the anxiety, then it's very compulsive. What you just need to try and do, yes, you might feel like you're hyperventilating, or the breathing goes a bit shallow, but you just need to wear all of that, and just try and carry on as best as you can without necessarily trying to deep breathe and trying to solve it in that sense. Again, there's nothing inherently bad about deep breathing. People can use that as a tool to calm themselves down, but if it's coming from the standpoint of trying to eradicate anxiety, then I can't highlight enough that is a compulsion, and that needs to come down, and you need to take the risk of not doing that and really just getting comfortable with that. What else you might do? You might do compulsive video watching. Compulsive, sorry, the phone just slipped there. So compulsive video watching on the YouTube channel. So you might feel triggered and you think, right, I need to get a quick bit of information. I need to quickly get that quick hit just to try and help me with my perspectives in the moment, just to try and get rid of that discomfort. And what you might do is you might end up watching 10 to 20 to 30 videos a day every time that you're triggered. And of course, that's a compulsion, because again, it's wanting to do something about it in the moment when anxiety is there. The reality is that you're not going to be able to do a lot of that. So of course you can watch the videos, but it's very important to balance these, maybe a few a week. It depends on the situation that you'll find yourself in. But yeah, if you're watching 10, 20, 30 videos, you know, a week, that's, you know, getting a bit much. So you need to be careful with that. Another thing as well, reading as well. So in the moment when you're disputing, you think you're going to find this magic nugget of information that's going to solve all your anxiety in the moment, and you might skim back through how to stubbornly refuse to make yourself miserable. You might skim back through the myth of self-esteem, and you know, it's almost like you're trying to hunt out that little bit of nugget of information, and you think that when you find that, that's going to be it, it's all going to be over. But again, I don't recommend doing that. You know, try and stick to your disputing schedule as best as you can, whether it's a week on, week off, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. You know, generally try and do disputing at a similar time each day, just to try and make it just to try and stop it from being compulsive. So what I do was I would leave time in the evening when I got back from work, you know, 30 to 40 minutes, and I'd do it then each night, and it saves you doing it in the moment, and it saves it becoming compulsive. Another one is supplements. So again, nothing inherently wrong with them, but when we're trying to do it, or when we're using them to try and get rid of anxiety in the moment, or try and reduce symptoms, then it can be compulsive. So you got, you know, CBD oil, magnesium glycinates, anything that's going to try and calm down the nervous system. Again, it's OCD more than likely is just going to cut through that like a hot knife through butter, and the sensation is very much the exposure with anxiety, right? So we need to try and get comfortable with that and get good at sitting with that. And obviously you're not going to be able to do that really if you're trying to like offset it compulsively like you would be with supplements. Okay, another one is monitoring how long you are on the recovery journey. This is a big one for me. So I remember when I got to the 2-year mark, I remember I'd compulsively track on my calendar the first coaching session that I had with OCD recovery, and then I'd watch like a hawk when that'd be 2 years. And I think, you know, I need to be recovered by now, my anxiety needs to go by now. But of course, when you're doing that, then OCD still got all the cards, right? It shows you that you've got very conditional life acceptance still. If you had unconditional life acceptance about anxiety, there'll be no reason for you to be monitoring when you recover, right? So again, that's a very, very sneaky one. And, you know, don't watch the clock in that regard. It's going to take as long as it takes. You know, how long is a piece of string? So yeah, that's also a key one. Another one, so compulsive chores, distractions. Every time that you have a trigger, you proactively start doing something. So you might, I don't know, start hoovering the house, or you might go on your phone and double check something, or you might just do something in the moment where you try and take your attention away from the anxiety, try and take your attention away from the anxiety. And of course, I'm not saying that you just have to sit at home all day and do nothing. Of course, you are going to have to do certain things, but you'll find that there will be some behaviors that are going on in order to try and offset anxiety quickly in the moment. So yeah, that might be, like I said, it might be going on social media, or it might be doing a chore, or it might be doing X, Y, Z. So be careful about how those little behaviors might be creeping in when you feel anxious. Sometimes it's just good to just really sit with that sensation and not try and do anything. Again, I'm not saying to completely just sit at home and do nothing in order to recover from anxiety, no, but there will be little times when you feel yourself doing that. So just be aware of that, okay? Another one as well, you know, biting your nails. So when the anxiety sensation comes up, you're trying to sort of mitigate off that discomfort, and you might bite your nails like that. And yeah, it can be a little bit compulsive. So when you do have that urge to do that, it can be good for you to not satisfy that urge, and again, just to really try and sit with that discomfort and not necessarily do anything to try and take your mind off it, or not try and do anything to alleviate it in your mind, because you know you're not going to be able to do that. So it's all about, when anxiety hits in the moment, it's all about allowing it as best as you can whilst carrying on with your day, and whilst trying to not add that additional layer that you might be adding to it, right? So, you know, you might have this like internal monitoring and resistance of the anxiety when you try and manipulate the feeling into a feeling of not being anxious. And there's a lot of that going on, that's subtly going on, that's driving the anxiety cycle. Of course, a lot of that is automatic, and you know, you're not going to be able to do that straight away, but over time, as you look at the irrational beliefs about the anxiety, the shoulds, oughts and musts, and the awfulizing, that internal monitoring and resistance and manipulating the feelings will just come down, and you actually get better at just sitting with that anxiety sensation without necessarily trying to do something about it. And that is when you're starving the anxiety of fuel in many ways, and as you starve it of the fuel, that is when the anxiety starts to dissipate. But again, you know, it's never the goal to be rid of anxiety. It's always the goal to accept it, to come to terms with it, and try and live with it as best as we can. All right. And then another couple of compulsions you might do. So one, if you're in the OCD recovery group chats, what you might do is every time you're triggered or anxious, what you do is you'll send a message to the group chat. Maybe it'll be a piece of reassurance. What do I do about anxiety in the moment? Maybe it'll be double checking something, whatever it is to do with your core fear. Because it's so fired up and intense in the moment, you just want that quick release. You want that quick answer. And again, it's, you know, nothing inherently wrong with doing that, but when you're trying to do that in order to just get rid of anxiety, yeah, of course, it's going to be a bit of a disaster. So again, when the trigger does come in, it's very good to just try and allow it to be there without necessarily trying to respond to it or do something about it in the moment. You know, we don't need to fix, we don't need to solve anxiety. We just need to wear it as best as we can and carry on with our day. And then another other anxiety compulsions. So, you know, you might have or compulsively drink alcohol just to try and feel a little more calm. You might resort to drugs in order to take the edge off. Maybe you're avoiding caffeine too because you don't want the anxiety sensations to be too intense. Also as well, you might feel very stressed, and because of that you want a quick release, so you might turn to pornography and adult content. Understandable, but you know, for anxiety and life in general, it's a bit of a disaster. So again, when you can see those behaviors seeping in there and you think, am I doing this compulsively to try and get rid of a feeling, then you'll know in yourself that isn't going to be a beneficial behavior for you as you embark on your anxiety recovery journey. So yeah, think about all these anxiety compulsions that you might be doing, guys. It's very important that we're quite strict with these, and that you target these as best as you can whilst working on the belief systems about the anxiety, you know, the shoulds, oughts and musts, and the awfulizing. Again, if you'd like to use our coaching services, please reach out to phil@ocdrecovery.com. I'm also available for coaching, and it'd be great for you to comment down below with any questions. So yeah, take care, guys, and I'll see you on the next video.